Welcome back to Ceramics, Day 2. Hey guys, welcome back to the second day of Ceramics. I hope you enjoyed looking at Andy Goldsworthy's work yesterday and seeing how he utilizes freestanding relief and kinetic sculpture. Today we're going to be looking at how he utilizes the elements and principles of design, and then you're going to have to do an activity where you're going to choose one of your images that you found yesterday and explain what elements of design he's using and how we see them, and then what principle of design is he creating with how he's arranging the elements. I will include the element and principle of design notes that you guys took in our introduction onto Schoology, so if you need further information while you complete this assignment, you can have it at your disposal. Whenever you create your own Andy Goldsworthy artwork, you are going to have to follow the elements and principles of design whenever you're creating your work. So that's why we're doing the review today. I want to begin talking about this picture that I have posted on the right. He's creating focal point, and we see that because he is utilizing color and value to contrast with the other colors and values surrounding the yellow leaves. He has collected a bunch of yellow leaves and then stuck them together with water. Because the color of the leaves is so intense, it makes it pop out because the intensities of the colors surrounding the yellow are not as bright and intense as the yellow itself. The yellow is also a lighter value, and there are darker value colors surrounding that yellow leaf, which also makes it pop out. So if you recall, with focal point, you create focal point by contrasting the elements of design. And because you're seeing that contrast of color and value, that's what's making that yellow piece stand out. Here we have an arc sculpture where he's utilizing snow and rock. I love this one. I think it's so beautiful, and the lines that he's creating with the rock. So we have a series of diagonal to vertical to diagonal, then horizontal lines again. We have a form because this is three-dimensional. There's height, width, and depth to it. This is not a shape because a shape is flat. It only has 2 dimensions. So we're seeing line, form. You could also say texture. The texture of the rock is really, really rough compared to the slightly smoother texture to the snow. You're also seeing a shift in value. The rocks are really dark and the snow is really light. So how is he arranging these elements of line, form, texture, and value to create a principle? He's actually utilizing these in the same even spacing. So I should be saying space is another element of design. The space between the snow or between the rocks is the same throughout. So because he's repeating the same line, form, space, texture, and value, he's showing repetition because he's repeating the same elements of design over and over again. In this image, we are seeing a vertical line, and the way that this looks like birchwood bark has been rolled up. We are seeing space because the birchwood bark is overlapping each other. We are seeing value. It's a lighter value bark than the wood that's surrounding it. We're also seeing texture. The bark that's been rolled up is really smooth, and then that piece of wood that it's placed inside has a more rough texture. You could also once again say that we're seeing form. There's some depth to those rolls that are placed in there. So once again, how is he showing a principle of design? Well, he's repeating the same pieces of bark throughout, but they're slightly changing in appearance. Some are longer and shorter than others. And because he's repeating the same elements but slightly changing them, we're seeing unity and harmony. You could also say that we're seeing focal point as well, because he's contrasting the value and of these bark next to the light value of the bark next to the dark value of the log. But unity and harmony is also being seen here. For this one, we are seeing form in the way that the snowballs are created. Their depth to them. There's height, width, and depth. We're seeing space. There's the same kind of consistent shape in between the snowballs. The same color is being repeated throughout. Thankfully, these are all white snowballs. We don't have any yellow ones in there. The value is the same as well as the texture. Because he found this awesome tree that looks like a V, he was able to stack these snowballs inside of that V. And you'll notice that the way that they're placed in there, he's pretty much kept it the same or almost the same on both sides. If you were to draw a line straight down the center of this, it's going to look very similar on either side. So this would be symmetrical balance. Symmetrical balance is when things are identical or close to being identical on either side. In this one, however, we're seeing line, this curvilinear line that's being, carried throughout the piece. And we're also seeing color. There's a bright, intense color to the yellow leaves and a more darker, dull color in the area that's surrounding it. The texture is pretty much the same throughout, and we're seeing a shape. These leaves are flat. They're not really that three-dimensional. You can stress that they are by maybe like the depth of the veins and stuff, but for most part, I would say they're considered a shape. He is changing the type of line that we're seeing on either side. So once again, if I drew a line through the center of this side does not match that side. And because there is an uneven balance of imagery, then that would be considered asymmetrical balance. The last picture we're looking at, I don't even know how he would have done this with a ton of patience. So you'll notice that there's all of these little segments. He broke off icicles and then using his saliva, licked them together in all of these little points. And he had to take so much time because there's so many little section points in here that he had to kind of bite off, stick together, wait for that to fuse before he could add on another one. He's utilizing a curvilinear line that spirals all the way down throughout the entire piece. And you could also say that he's allowing the light from the sun to create a better contrast of value. That sunlight is catching the icicle, making it look really bright, and it contrasts nicely against kind of the dark tree and the darker snow that's surrounding it. But because this line is put on an angle and it's placed on a tree that's put on an angle, it is showing movement. So, your eye kind of starts here, it moves all the way down, and then it shoots off from the bottom, but because that tree's on an angle, that tree line shoots your eye back up again, and then you start this kind of spiral motion over again. So for today's assignment, I want you to choose one of the Andy Goldsworthy images from your day one assignment. In a notability document, explain what elements of design are being used and how those elements are being shown. I don't want you to just write, he's using shape, form, texture, space. You have to tell me how he's using shape, form, texture, space. So what is a shape? Where do you see texture? Where do you see space? Those are the types of thorough explanations I want to see. Then I want you to explain what principle of design the work is showing. You cannot use any of the images I just talked about. I want you guys to think on your own. And like I said before, I am going to be placing that element and principle of design notes directly onto Schoology so you can use that as a resource to reference. If you have any questions, email me, and good luck.